Oh. All right. Come back to your mat, and could you lie on your stomach? Wow. Joel just knew. It's the vibe came. And turn your head to look towards the right so that you're actually on your left cheek, somewhere on the left side of your face. And we're going to be here for a while in this position. So see how you can organise yourself. And then the next part of this position that we're going to be in for a while is to have both arms down by your sides with your palms up. Okay. And so how can you organise yourself to be as comfortable as possible here? And just check through yourself. Have a scan through in this position. How do you distribute your weight here? How much can you sense about your contact with the floor? The places where you have a lot of pressure, or it feels like you're really pushing into the floor somewhere. The places where it's a softer pressure. And where are the spaces underneath you in this position? So we're lying on your stomach with your head turned, looking towards the right, the left side of your face on the floor, arms by your side, palms up, the latecomers, and sensing the areas where you contact the floor and the areas where there's space underneath. We're not so used to paying attention to that in this position. So what can you find out? And what can you sense about your breathing here? How is it different when you're lying like this compared to when you lie on your back often and sense your breathing at the start of a lesson? Are there parts of you moving as you breathe that you might not normally be so aware of? Do some parts of your breathing feel a little more constrained? And what's your sense of the movement available in this position? Do you feel like you're here and you're stuck? You're here and this is it? Or is there some ability to find a little bit of possibility of movement? And so just very gently press your right hand into the floor a little bit and then let it go. And this is a gentle press. See what that means to you. Gently. Little gentle press of your right hand into the floor and then let it go. Just to see how you organise that. Now your palms are up. Your palms are towards the ceiling and your arms are alongside you. And then press Your left foot to the floor and let it go. Just a couple of times, tiny pressure. Press your head a tiny bit and let it go. What does that mean for you? And each time as you do these things, observe what else is going on. Could you press your stomach into the floor and let it go? Your right hip, press and let it go. Your left hip, press, let it go. And as we go through all these places, maybe you have a sense of either lengthening a little bit as you press or shortening a little bit as you press. Could you press your right elbow a little bit and let it go? Your left foot and let it go. Your chest. Which part of your chest is available to press a little bit? Maybe you could press your lower ribs, maybe your upper ribs, maybe one side, the other side. How's each of those little variations different for you? Press your pubic bone into the floor gently and let it go. What happens here? Press and let it go. And your left foot and your right foot. So if you can, keep your head turned towards that side, looking towards the right. You might need to make little adjustments as you go, and you do need to look after yourself, but pretty much the whole lesson is going to be in this position. So whenever you need to have a little rest from this, look after yourself, but I won't specifically say that. So could you press both feet to the floor and stop? And do that a couple of times. And which part of your feet do you find pressing in? So you don't need to tuck your toes under. It's with your feet long, toes are flat, you're not tucking your toes under. So just press both feet. How do you do that? Then could you press both knees and let them go? So your knees are increasing their pressure on the floor and letting go. You have a sense beyond your knees of what else is going on. Then press your pubic bone again and let it go. How much do you need to press? Press the right side of your pelvis, the right iliac bone, and let it go. And the left one, and let it go. The middle of your stomach, middle of your belly, and let it go. The right side of your pubic bone, and the left side of your pubic bone. So each little part of you that presses into the floor gives you a little bit more information about your contact with the floor and requires a little bit slightly different organisation through the rest of you in order to press and release. Could you press your pectoral muscles into the floor and let go? So the front of your chest on both sides. Could you press the whole the front of your chest, the upper chest, and then press the right one and the left one, and sense how each of those asks something a little bit different. Press your head gently, softly, and let it go. And notice which part of your face, which part of your head you're doing that with. And then press a little bit further back, a little bit more towards the back, maybe more towards behind your ear. A couple of times, letting it go each time, very gently. What does that do? And then press a little more towards the front, more towards your cheek, your eye, your jaw. So each of these slight differences. Then press both hands and let go. Both elbows and let go. Are your elbows in a position where they can press? Both shoulders and let go. And could you press the whole of both arms? Right hand, elbow, shoulder, your left hand, elbow, shoulder. When you press both of those at the same time, what can you sense? Can you have a sense of pressing your entire self into the floor, your whole self? And when you think of that, do you get longer or shorter? Do you hold your breath? What happens? Come back to your feet and press both feet into the floor and let them go. Then both knees and let them go. Your stomach, let it go. Your shoulders, both shoulders, let them go. And your head, let it go. Back to your chest, let it go. Middle of your chest, both sides of your chest. Your belly button, let it go. Your pubic bone, let it go. Your knees, let them go. Your feet, let them go. And rest there for a moment. Check how you are, how you're sensing yourself. And we're going to continue with that idea of pressing these different parts of you. Starting from the feet, going up towards your head, back towards your feet. And so take your time. If you need to have a little rest on your back, you can do that. Some people are looking after themselves in that way. And explore a little bit in your own time. So we're going to spend a bit of time finding a way to make this sort of a wave of pressure going through. Your feet up towards your head and then back down towards your feet. So if you're ready, you can come back to that. If you need more of a break, come back to that. And so really, you need to look after yourself as we do this. But also you can ask yourself, how strongly do you need to press each time? How hard do you need to work in this? It's a really gentle kind of a pressure that we're looking at. So when you're ready, you can come back into that position, head turned towards the right, your arms down by your sides, and start pressing your feet and letting go, your knees letting go, your pubic bone letting go, your belly letting go, your chest letting go, both shoulders letting go, and your head releasing, and then back again, each of those parts. And you could imagine that there's like a, well, Feldenkrais says a steamroller, maybe something a little lighter than that, but a roller, a heavy roller that kind of rolls over the top of you from your feet. So each time the roller presses your feet and then moves up, presses your calves, presses the back of your knees so your knees go in, presses the back of your thighs up to your hips so your hips go in to the floor. And each time the roller moves up to the next place, the pressure is released on the place before. So it's not a matter of just compressing everything into the floor. You press, let go, then the next place presses and lets go. The next place, sensing the front of your pelvis, the pubic bone, then letting go. Your belly, then letting go. Chest, then letting go. Up to your shoulders and letting go. Your head, letting go, which part of your head presses, which part of your shoulders press, which part of your chest, your ribs, your belly, your pubic bone, thighs, your knees, down to your feet. And continue just to softly send that wave of pressure upwards and downwards, slowly, softly. And each time the roller pushes you more into the ground, bit by bit, maybe it has the effect of making you a little longer, a little flatter, a little more spread into the floor. But you might also notice that some parts of you don't compress so easily under the roller. So notice, if you can, where it doesn't give so easily, where you don't give so easily to press into the floor. Maybe somewhere in your chest, maybe your hips, maybe your neck, your head somewhere. Done all this beautiful softening up stuff with the first ATM you've just done. So what can you feel now as you continue to breathe through this wave that rolls upwards and downwards, slowly and softly? And then could you start to do this just on the left side? So think of your left toes, your left foot, your left knee, left side of your pelvis. So your head's still turned to the right and you're pressing on the left side. The left side of your chest, the front of your left shoulder. How does that come up through to your head and then down again? That's it. So now could you bend your right knee so that your foot lifts up towards the ceiling? That's it. And in that position, continue to make that pressure wave, that wave of pressure going up through from your left foot upwards, through all the way to your head, and then all the way down again, in whatever way makes sense to you now. Once we take that right foot, right lower leg out of the equation, how does that change things? You press each part down and release it, press the next part down and release it. How does that roll over you now? Okay, so now could you lift your right knee? Just do that a couple of times. Lift your right knee and let it down. And in order to lift your right knee, does something go down into the floor? Or not? How does that change the pressure at the front of you? How does your weight shift in order to lift your right knee a little bit and let it down? So see if you maybe have a sense that you could get longer as you do this. That as your right knee lifts a little bit, that the front of you could lengthen a little into the floor. You could sense that your head maybe lengthens a little upwards. What happens in your chest? Can your chest be soft enough to allow that shift to happen all the way through as you lift your knee and let it down again? That's it. So you're not needing to lift your head, but just sensing that lengthening that might be able to happen there. Let it down. Have a little rest. Now you might want to roll onto your back, or you might be comfortable staying there. And if you've changed position, what happens? Which part of you is saying thank you? How are you breathing in your rest? And then come back onto your stomach. Same position. Head turned to the right, arms down by your side, palms up. palms up, arms down by your sides, palms up towards the ceiling. And if you've come back into this position from another position, how can you find a way to be more comfortable? Your head still needs to be to that side, and that's often a challenge. To keep your head towards the right, to be on your left cheek for such a long time. So just see, maybe you don't need to turn your head quite as much as you think you need to. Maybe you can put a little bit of padding somewhere to help. Maybe you can let your weight shift a little bit more to allow that to be more comfortable. Come back to having your right foot lifted, your knee bent. And lift your right knee again. And this time, could you press your right hand at the same time as you lift your right knee? Maybe your elbow as well. So your right hand and your right elbow, can you press them into the floor just a little bit at the same time as you lift your right knee? And what does that do differently from what was happening before? Maybe you're already doing this, maybe not. So how do we get that combination to feel like there's some sort of connection between pressing your right hand, your right elbow, and lifting your right knee a little bit, lengthening, flattening. Can you do this without holding your breath, without stiffening your chest? What does your head do? Chest, your neck, all those parts of you that could have make some small little movement to allow your knee to lift a little lighter, to allow yourself to lengthen all the way through. And then keep lifting your right knee, but this time press with your left hand. With your left hand, maybe with your left elbow, if that makes sense. And what happens now? How is that different? And can you feel that something needs to happen? A little twist in your spine, in your trunk, somewhere in your chest, your neck. Think of all those little joints, all those parts of you that could move if you let them, if you're not stiffening and holding. Let your right leg down and lift your left foot now. And now lift your left knee and see how that's different. Could you lift your left knee and your left hand at the same time? Sorry, lift your left knee and press your left hand at the same time. Lifting and pressing. So you lift your left knee, press your left hand, your left elbow. How does that combination connect through? What happens at the front of you? How does your weight shift? How do you allow some movement through your torso, through your ribs, in your spine, in your neck? Do your shoulder blades, collarbones have anything to do with this? Can you see or sense that your pressure, the pressure at the front of you, as you lift that knee, slowly moves upwards, pushing your whole pelvis, your spine, your head, upwards, lengthening. Could you press both hands as you lift your left knee? What's different there? What happens to the weight of your head on the floor if both hands press at the same time as your knee lifts? Can your chest soften enough that organises your head a little differently, that the pressure moves upwards? Let it go. Have another little rest, however you want to do that. What's your relationship to the floor? Whatever position you're in. How are you breathing? What have you learnt in all these other challenging lessons that we've been doing about how to look after yourself and how to learn how to create a learning opportunity for yourself in this really constrained position that we're doing the lesson in? So roll over onto your tummy again. Head to the same side again, arms down by your sides, palms up. Looking after yourself. So leave your legs long now. Have your arms down by your side, your palms up. And could you lift your shoulders, both shoulders a little bit, and let them down? Not your head. So you're just lifting a little bit, both shoulders, and letting them down, and feel how the pressure moves through the front of you on the floor as you do this. And you could press with your hands to do this. Try that. So as you lift both shoulders, press both hands a little bit. The weight, the pressure on your hands increases as the pressure on your shoulders decreases. And then could you do it without pressing your hands? So letting your arms and your hands stay softly on the floor, limply on the floor, but still managing to lift your shoulders and let them go. So where does the pressure move to as you do this? And what happens in your head? So you don't need to lift your head. Well, actually, let's lift the head now. So now, the next time, lift your shoulders and lift your head, just the tiniest amount, and let them down again. And when we include your head in this, what happens differently? Can your arms still stay soft? Does something else press into the floor? Can you sense that your weight can shift and move? Or do you feel that you have to push something into the floor in order to lift very softly your head and both shoulders? And then let your head rest down again and just lift your shoulders again and see if that feels any different now. So this time let your head be resting down and just lift your shoulders without lifting your head, with a soft neck. So without that idea that your head is going to lift, does it still move a little? Is there some connection still between the lifting of your shoulders, something that happens in your neck, in your shoulder girdle, in your chest, in the way that your weight moves on the floor? Let that go and just think of that wave of pressure coming through again. So from your feet through to your knees, to your pelvis, your belly, your chest, your shoulders, your head, down again. See how that is now after you've explored some of those components a little bit more. And then could you do that just through the right side? So feel that the right side of you is being pressed into the floor bit by bit. Foot, knee, front of your pelvis, right side of your belly, your chest, your right shoulder, your head, and down again. How soft can you be as you do this? And you have the feeling of being lengthened and flattened on the right side now. From your toes all the way up to your head, back again. And let it go. Rest for a moment. Again, if you need to change position for a little bit, a little break, do that. And when Feldenkrais was teaching this lesson, he kept people completely in this one position for a very long time. But of course, you're looking after yourselves. You're finding a way to stay comfortable, either in that position or coming out of it and going back into it again whenever you need to. So now come back onto your belly, head turned to the right, arms by your side, palms up. Is it getting any easier here? Sense the weight, how you've distributed the weight at the front of you, how the spaces underneath you might be changing. And come down to your feet now. And could you move your heel, your right heel, a little bit side to side? So your toes are going to stay down. They're going to stay in position. And just move your right heel a little in and a little out. So you're rotating over your toes Your heel goes to the outside and to the inside. Lightly, softly. What else happens as you do that? And could you start to include your right hand now? So the back of your hand, hand's on the floor, and start to turn your hand at the same time as you're turning your heel. So you could think of the palm of your hand and the sole of your foot turning one way and the other way. Your fingers stay soft. So the back of your wrist is rolling on the floor, the back of your hand is rolling on the floor, and your heel's turning in and out. So this is an analogous movement, your hand and your foot. So when your right hand and your right foot are both turning like this, what else is happening? Is there some kind of connection between your hand and your foot through the rest of you? So turn your hand and your foot, or notice whether your hand and your foot are turning in the same direction or in opposite directions. What have you chosen to do? So whichever way you're doing it, can you change? So if your hand and your foot were turning in the same direction before, now could you move them in opposite directions? And if they were already moving in opposite directions, now turn them the same way. And with that extra little level of complexity, what happens to your breathing, to your jaw, to the ability to shift weight on the floor? Could you bring your other hand in and turn both hands and your heel? And which way are you turning your hands in relation to that heel? Are they all going the same way? Could you turn both hands in the same direction as each other and then turn your heel in the opposite direction? So your hands and your heel are going opposite. How much of you is going with your heel? How much of you is going with your hands? Is there anything else moving apart from your hands and your heel? And keep it light, continuous, soft, simple. Could you turn one hand one way and the other hand the other way at the same time as your heel continues? And then switch. Which hand is going with which heel? With the heel. Switch it over. And then finally just turn both hands and your heel all in the same direction. In, out, in, out. And as you've gone through that process, just notice whether your heel is turning more or turning more easily, whether your hands seem to be able to turn more or more easily than before. And has anything else changed? And after doing that, can you do the whole wave again? Let your hands come to rest, let your heel just stay wherever you like. And start to do that whole wave again through both sides. feet, knees, pelvis, pubic bone, belly, chest, shoulders, head, and all the way back again. And as you do that, is there a difference between the way your right foot and leg is compressed compared to your left foot and leg? And continue the wave all the way through, up and then down, sensing how your weight can shift. How light are you on the floor to be able to move your pressure up and down like this? And can you bring your attention to your shoulders as you're doing that? And how would your arms and your shoulders fit into this wave of pressure? Can you check whether your elbows actually can press into the floor? So check the position of your elbows. If your arms are really straight, it might be difficult for your elbows to make contact with the floor, to press into the floor. So let your elbows be out a little bit to your side. Your arms might be bent a little so that you really can sense some pressure from your elbows into the floor. So everything's on the floor still with your elbows open, back of your hands still. And now press the floor with your whole upper limb. So your hand, your elbow, your shoulder, on both sides. And then just press your right hand, elbow, shoulder, and let it go. And then press your left hand, elbow, shoulder, and let it go. So your knuckles can press, your wrist can press, your elbow, and then alternate. Your right arm and then your left arm, lightly but clearly. So you have a sense of your whole arm each time. The knuckles, the wrist, the elbow, shoulder, pressing all at the same time and then releasing and then changing sides. And what can you sense in between your two arms? How does your chest respond? How does each rib respond? How does your sternum respond? Does your spine turn, lengthen? What happens in your head? So have a little rest because it looks like we need one. Take yourself out of that position for a little bit because this next bit's really cool. So I want you to be able to do it. Take a break. Notice, what are you taking a break from? There's such a lot going on in this lesson, but it's such a constrained position. You need to somehow find movement, find some freedom to make connections, to find variations, even in this really apparently still position. Check your breathing. Is there anywhere that you feel might have been holding on? So now come back onto your stomach. Same position again. Head to the same direction, arms down by your side, elbows wide, so that you can feel that the whole of your right arm and the whole of your left arm is available to be able to press if needed. Settle into that position. Check your chest, check your breathing. Where's your weight? Okay. So, press your right arm into the floor and let it go. And see what happens in your head, what could happen in your head. So there's what does happen and there's what could happen. So if you had the idea that your head could slide a little bit, forwards or backwards, which way might make sense as you press your right arm, including your right shoulder, down into the floor and then let it go. If you try a little bit of each, see what makes sense. And then I'm going to ask you to see if it's possible for your head to actually slide back a little bit as your right shoulder goes down. So the back of your head slides a little closer to your left shoulder behind you. So with that idea, how can you organise through this upper part of your chest and your neck to allow that to feel not just possible, but maybe even that it makes sense, that there's a logic in that. So as your right shoulder goes down into the floor, sense how your shoulder girdle is brought into that to bring the base of your neck a little forwards, the top of your sternum a little towards your shoulder, a little towards the right. This whole upper ring of your top of your sternum, your first rib, and the base of your neck, T1, C7. Can all of that part of you be mobile enough? You find a little bit of give in there that allows your head to tip back a little bit, just to slide a little bit back. So the front of your neck, the middle of your neck goes forwards, but the back of your head, your occiput, just tips a little back towards your left shoulder. And could you breathe at the same time? Is there something happening in your other shoulder that also can help this movement to happen? Maybe your pelvis is still somewhere involved here. Your whole spine. Let that go. Pause and rest a little bit. And then try pressing your left arm to the floor. Your hand, your elbow, your shoulder. And observe now whether your head can go in the other direction. So as your left shoulder now presses down into the floor, softly, how would that organize? How would you organize through your shoulder girdle, through your upper neck, through your lower neck, middle of your neck, your whole spine, your rib cage, so that pressing through your left arm would slide your head a little bit forwards. So taking your nose now a little towards your right shoulder. So Feldenkrais here uses this lovely word. He says your whole body needs to be buoyant on the floor. So does that word evoke somehow a sense that you could almost, that this is almost like a little swimming action? You could be floating here and allowing this movement of your shoulders, your shoulder girdle, to connect into the center of you, to allow your head to slide softly. And you could alternate, pressing a little bit your left arm and shoulder, a little bit your right arm and shoulder, feeling that buoyancy, fluidity through your system. Through your spine, through the center of yourself, softly. It's a very primal kind of a movement of like a little eel. And let it go. And see how you are on the floor now, if that's enabled you to be any more comfortable or not. So now take your hands a little bit further away. So your elbows stay in that same out wide a little bit, but take your hands out a little further so that they're away from your hips, away from your side. Yeah. And could you gently now sorry, I'm just getting myself organised. So gently press the floor with your arms again. And this time, could you lift your pubic bone a little bit and then let all of that go? So as you press the floor with both your arms, could you feel that your pubic bone could get lighter? And then let go with your arms and let your pubic bone come down again to land. And keep doing that. So each time your pubic bone lifts, can you feel that it kind of shortens your legs a little? It draws your legs a little up more towards the centre. And as you let your pubic bone come down to land again, that your legs lengthen out. Doesn't have to be a big movement. Just lift a little and lower. So alternate. So use your arms to help your pubic bone to lift. And then lengthen out. And each time feel that you're getting a little longer through your legs. And then continue with this idea, but as your pubic bone comes down, could you start, when your pubic bone comes down, then press your pubic bone down and lift your feet a little without bending your knees. So in other words, lift your legs a little, yeah, but just a bit. That's it. So you're lifting your pubic bone and your legs shorten. Your pubic bone comes down and your legs lengthen and lift. And feel that lengthening and lifting each time. What are your heels doing? All that turning we did before of the heel. So your pubic bone, as it presses down into the floor, lengthens your legs, and your legs get lighter on the floor as they get longer. And as you lift your pubic bone, your legs kind of get pulled in and a bit heavier. That's it. So just keep alternating this, lifting your pubic bone and lifting your legs. Lifting your pubic bone and lifting your legs. And can you do that without holding your breath? Without stiffening your chest? And feel how this weight shift through, this rolling of pressure through the front of you can continue. You let your diaphragm, your ribs move, your sternum. That's it. Is anything still holding and not letting you, not moving? If anything's not moving, it's going to be blocking. Okay, so now alternate this lifting of your pubic bone with lifting your knees. So letting your feet stay down. Your feet are going to stay on the floor, but this time as your pubic bone comes down, your knees are going to lift. So your pubic bone lifts and then comes down, and when you come down, your feet stay on the floor and your knees lift. Without pressing your feet stay softly on the floor. That's it. So do that a few times. And then could you alternate lifting your pubic bone with your head? So you lift your pubic bone, and then as it comes down, lift your head. You lift your you let your legs just do whatever they do. Lift your pubic bone, and then as your pubic bone comes down, you lift your head. So feel how the weight shift, the pressure shift at the front of you helps you to organise to do this. How are you coordinating all of these extensors, flexors, lengthening, shortening? It's a really complex movement, but the softer you are in your chest, the more of yourself you have in your image as you do this, the easier it gets. Can you do that with your shoulders? So pubic bone now and shoulders. So let your head rest down. And that's it. So your pubic bone lifts and then comes down. As it comes down, your shoulders are going to lift now, but your head can stay resting down. That's it. Feel that pressure shifting through the front of you on the floor. And then do that just with your right shoulder lifting instead of both shoulders. Then with your left shoulder lifting instead of both shoulders, still alternating with your pubic bone. And that wave of pressure still coming through. But each time you lift a different part of you, you might find another line of pressure, another trajectory that the pressure can go through the front of you like this. And then lift your pubic bone. As it comes down, lift your feet again. So do that one again. That's it. So pubic, that's it. And then lifting your pubic bone, and as you come down, lifting your head. So what happens differently? How does the pressure shift differently when you're moving your head, when you're lifting your head, compared to when you're lifting your feet? Could you lift your head and your feet together? So your pubic bone's lifting, and then as it comes down, your head and your feet, your head and both feet, both legs lift. How long are you when you do that? Can you still breathe easily? Can you sense that every part of you can lengthen and lighten? Okay. Let it go and just rest on the floor where you are for a moment, with your head turned to the right still, with your arms like this still. Just sense yourself in this position. And how much of you is resting on the floor now? What can you sense of the spaces underneath you now? Is there more space? Less space? Do you feel longer or shorter? How's your breathing? How light are you or heavy on the floor? So bring your hands to a push-up position. So your head stays, keep your head where it is for now. And bring your hands to where your elbows are lifted. And very, very, very slowly, can you start to turn your head a little bit towards the middle and let your head down and then turn it back again. So it's like you're just going to, a few degrees, bring your head out of that twist that it's been in. And then let it come back again. So many, many, many increments to take your head out of this position that it's been in for such a long time. And how much of you are you including in this turning of your head? Are you thinking that it's just your neck that's turning? So what would happen if you expanded your idea of how much of you could be involved in this turning? To let your head softly, softly start to come towards the middle, maybe even a little bit towards the other side. So what about if one of your shoulders lifted and one of your shoulders went down? If your left shoulder lifts a little and your right shoulder goes down, can you feel that that might help to include a bit more of you to enable your head to turn? And it doesn't need to be lifted up in the air. You can let the weight of it be down towards the ground. So it's just a turning rather than a lifting. So if you feel that that left shoulder can lift, the right shoulder can come down a little bit. So it's as if your head is turning into that space underneath your left shoulder. Are your arms wide enough to let you do that? Maybe take your hands a little further away and see if that makes a difference. And start to turn your head maybe all the way over to the other side. And as you do that, how much of you turns? So is it just your head turning? Do you just come to bring your right ear to the floor? Or can you feel that your chest and your pelvis maybe can be part of this as well? So to do this comfortably, and even if you took some rests in the middle of this lesson and turned your head the other way, you've still had it predominantly to one side, and it can be really quite a challenge to turn it the other way without it being uncomfortable. But if you include all of you, pressing gently with your hands, and feel how one shoulder goes up and the other shoulder goes down. And you can turn your head to look to the left, and then your right shoulder can lift, the left shoulder can go down, and your head can turn back to the right. Have your hands a little wider so that you're making a bridge under each arm, and you might find that you could expand this movement of your head to actually head towards that bridge. This might start to feel a bit familiar. That's it. And now I can see lots of pelvises moving. Which leg lengthens, which leg shortens as you go one way and the other way. So as one shoulder goes down towards the ground, the other one lifts. And then you change it over. That's it. So your head now can go towards that space underneath each arm. That's it. And maybe you could go a little faster, a little lighter, a little softer. Feel how all of you now is moving. Every rib, every vertebra. Wow. Sorry, I'm just, some of these shoulder girdles are moving beautifully. Feel how your shoulder blades and your collarbones organise, how your spine moves between them. And go lightly, quickly, without losing the direction of the movement of your head. Quickly, lightly, one way, the other way, boom, boom, boom. How light are you on the floor now? Boom, boom. That's it. Lovely. And then come back to rest the way that we started. Your head on the side, your arms down, palms up. And how is it to lie in this position now? Has something changed after doing that? How's your weight distributed here? How's your breathing? How long are you? How flat are you? And so lift your pubic bone, lift your pelvis a little bit at the front, and could you bring your left arm under your tummy across to the other side, and in that way roll over onto your back. Oh, how fluid can you be? Yes. And rest on your back. And feel how you are on the floor now. And what draws your attention here? Do you feel flat when you're on your back? Or is there parts of you that stay lifted? So we've been using a lot of extension throughout this lesson. So it might be that you can feel some residual tension in those extensors, or maybe you don't. Just sense the space under your lower back. We don't want to bring mice into the equation, but you know, it'd be worse. I have heard people say, could a cockroach crawl under there? But that would be even worse, yeah? So just sense the space under your lower back. Anything else you notice there. And then roll to your side and come up to sit and come up to stand. And see how you are in standing. So what's happened to your organisation from all of this? Very See. Where are you looking? Where are your eyes? What's the shape in your trunk? Position of your chest, your belly, your pelvis, weight on your feet. What else do you notice? Maybe something totally different. And shift your weight onto one leg, onto the other leg. See if there's a difference there. Then start to walk around. And feel as you're walking, what's your predominant movement in your trunk? Is it rotation? Is it side bend? Is it flexion extension? So because that was quite a long stretch, you can just walk around for a little bit longer. We're going to finish up with another little piece of this. Walk around for a bit. You can have a few minutes. Water in, water out, whatever you need to do. And I'll call you back to your mats in a few minutes. When you're ready, when you've explored how you are, how you're moving, as much as you want to, you can come back to your mats and you can lie on your back. And we'll just wait for everyone to come back, to be ready. So feel like, yeah, I know. There's talk about other noises. That's right. So Steve, watch out. Yes, you've done well staying focused with all the banging and bumping and dragging and distracting noises going on. So on your back, and you can bend your knees up. That's right. And see what happens immediately when you bend your knees up. And interlace your fingers, bring your hands behind your head. So underneath your head to support the weight of your skull. Elbows out wide on the floor. That's it. And just lift your right elbow while the left one stays down. And feel as you do that, what happens to your head? How does that move your head? So you let your head roll with that. So as you lift your right elbow, your hand will come with that. And feel how you can roll your head a little, just with that movement of your arm, your shoulder. Your head shifts a little towards the left. And then let your right elbow stay down and do the same with your left. Your left arm lifts and brings your head with it into that rolling, a little bit of lengthening. And is it only your head that's moving? That's it. And then let your arms come back to rest. And then you can lift both elbows a little bit and lift your head softly and let it down a few times. And you've done this many times. So your knees are bent up, your feet are standing, and you're using your arms to lift your head. And what happens in your chest? Can you feel that your sternum could slide down a little? Your chest could fold a little. Your lower ribs at the back of you come down a bit towards the floor. The back of your chest. And that the pressure is shifting on the back of you now towards your pelvis a little in that direction. Yeah. And so the next time you lift your head, can you lift your pelvis a little bit at the same time? So your pelvis and your head a little bit, and then let them down. And see if you can lift your head and your pelvis the same amount. So your head's not lifting higher than your pelvis isn't lifting higher than your head. And where do you find most of the pressure when you do this? So if you lift your head and your pelvis and you stay lifted for a moment, where's your sense of the part of you that presses most strongly into the floor? Is there a sort of focal area of pressure here? Just see if you can find where that is. Let it down. And then do the same thing again, head and pelvis, the same amount of lifting with your arms. Feet are close to your pelvis. Find where most of your weight lands. And then could you shift a little bit side to side on this? So a little bit to the right of this place, a little bit to the left. So you're just shifting your weight right and left, feeling how do you organise to do that? So without constraining your breath, without working too hard. That's it. Then let your head stay in the middle, or keep your head in the middle, and let your pelvis move side to side. Feel how the weight shifts. Then keep your pelvis in the middle and take your head side to side, little, and feel how that shifts. And let everything down again, rest. And see, has anything changed now for you already? And again, bend your knees up, stand your feet. Bring your arms under your head, interlace your fingers. And this time, leave your head and your arms on the floor. And lift your pelvis. So your pelvis is up and your head and your arms are down now. So feel, where does the pressure come to now? What part of your chest? It doesn't need to be high. But just lift your pelvis and feel how the pressure shifts upwards towards somewhere, the back of your chest. And find where that is, and then move your pelvis a little side to side. A little to the left, a little to the right, slowly and softly, so that you can sense where the pressure moves to, how the pressure shifts underneath you. And then bring your pelvis back to the middle, and with your head and your arms down like this, can you move your head and your arms a little to the right and a little to the left? So you're only lifting the tiniest amount to stop the friction. Yeah. So you're actually sliding your shoulder girdle, your arms and your head. Okay. All right, come back, have a little rest, and we're going to be more specific. Good. So have your feet in a position where they can really support the lifting of your pelvis. Bring your arms underneath your head to support the weight of your head. And lift your pelvis a bit. Doesn't have to go as high as we've been doing it in some of these other lessons, but to where it feels like it's a comfortable lift for you, where the weight shifts to where you can support it somewhere at the back of your chest. And now just take your pelvis to the right and back to the middle. To the right and back to the middle. That's it. That's it. And then, can you start to, as your pelvis goes to the right and back to the middle, can you slide your head and your arms to the right at the same time? So that's it. So we're going into a little bit of side bend and back to the middle, but don't work too hard. Slow it down so you can feel what you're doing, and you can feel how the shifting of pressure happens at the back of your chest somewhere. That's it. Good. And then let everything down for a moment. Leave your knees up. Leave your arms where they are. Come up again with your pelvis. And this time take your pelvis to the right and take your head and your arms to the left. There's a different organisation. So now it's like you're staying in a straight line. Yeah? Your pelvis goes to the right, your head and your shoulders go to the left and back to the middle again. That's it. So feel how that's different from what you did before. And then pause for a minute and then go back to doing what you did the first time. So your head and your shoulders to the right and your pelvis to the right. That's it. Go slowly enough that you can feel the shifting of pressure. And that part of you that presses into the ground gradually gets a little more mobile. And let everything down, let your legs down, let your arms down, have a rest. See if anything's changed since the first time you lay down. And then bend your knees up again, have your feet standing. Bring your arms again, hands interlaced. You can interlace your hands the non-habitual way. Bring them underneath your head. Lift your pelvis to where it feels comfortable, to where you can support the weight at the back of your chest. And take your pelvis to the left now and back to the middle while your head stays in the middle. That's it. And then start to bring your head and your shoulders to the left at the same time as your pelvis is moving to the left. And notice, do you go, which side of your chest goes down? How do you shift your weight here? And then have a brief pause. Leave your arms there if they're comfortable. Leave your legs there if they're comfortable. And then lift your pelvis again. And this time your pelvis is going to the left and your head and your shoulders are going to the right. So this is the other way of doing it, where your spine stays fairly straight, because one end is going, the lower end that's attached to your pelvis is going to the left, the upper end attached to your head is going to the right. So just move enough that you can feel that relationship stays pretty similar. That's it. Feel yourself moving over that area of pressure at the back of your chest. Let it come down again just for briefly, just to recalibrate. Let everything rest for a moment and come back to the way that you were doing of side bending. So you lift your pelvis again, take your pelvis to the left, and your head and shoulders to the left. That's it. And see if that feels any different. Is your weight shifting any more easily? That's it. And let everything go. Lengthen out again, rest for a moment. See whether things are changing there. What's changing in the contact of the back of yourself with the floor now? The spaces underneath you. And bend your knees up. Bring your arms under your head again. Interlace your fingers. Bring your hands under your head. And come back to lifting your head and your pelvis at the same time. So do it a couple of times to find a way to do that simultaneously. So your pelvis and your head, and then everything goes down. And feel, where do you support your weight? when you're doing this. And the next time you've got your head and your pelvis lifted, stay there. And without changing the relationship between your head and your pelvis, so the same distance between your nose and your pubic bone, can you lift your pelvis a little bit and feel how your head would go down a bit? And then lower your pelvis a little bit and feel how your head would come up a bit. Now, if you make it really big, it's quite tricky to really keep this relationship the same. So you're holding your abdominals at the same length the whole time. And you just, if you have the idea that you're just going to shift up and down by one vertebra at the back of you, that you're shifting that pressure one vertebra down and then one vertebra up. Can you breathe at the same time? That's it, softly. Feel that, that's it, lengthening at the back, shifting of pressure, the softening of this part of your chest. And then let it go. Let your legs down, let your arms down, and see how do you feel now on the floor compared to when you first rolled over after all of that time lying on your stomach. What's your sense here of length, of how your weight's distributed on the floor? And maybe there are really specific parts of you that feel different. Or maybe it's a general sensation. So when you're ready, you can roll to your side and you can come up to stand. The second time. And just notice how this standing compares to you standing, whatever, 10 minutes ago. What's happening in your back, in your belly, your chest? Where are your eyes? How are you breathing? And start to walk around. And see now. Is that walking now any different from the walking the last time? How easy is it to turn and change direction? To shift the weight from one foot to the next foot? Do you have a sense of movement of your shoulder girdle, your ribs, your sternum, your belly? Are you light or heavy? And we can have a break now, a lunch break. You can explore this for a little bit more, or you can just dive out the door. And we'll come back at 2:30.
And maybe during lunch, the second group